Hello, my name is Neil Treganza. I'm a member of the Culinary Arts and Hospitality Management team at American River College. My normal job is to oversee the pantry side of the kitchen for the Oak Cafe, which is a student-operated fine dining restaurant right on the campus of American River College. Since we can't have the restaurant open these days, we thought we would share some recipes with you. Now today we're going to look at our Brown Butter Honey Cornbread, and we serve this almost every fall, and when we do, we get a lot of positive comments from our guests, and often they request the recipe. So we thought we'd share it with you. First we're going to look at how to make brown butter, and then we will look at how to make our Brown Butter Honey Cornbread. Now brown butter is basically just toasted butter. So what we're going to do is take some butter that we've sliced up so it melts more evenly, and place that in a heavy bottom pan. We're going to cook that over medium heat until it melts and ultimately comes to a boil. We're boiling off the water that is contained within butter. Once that water's gone, we're going to keep an eye on the milk fats that will have settled to the bottom of the pan and watch for them to start turning brown. As soon as it's the color that we want, we're going to pour that into a heat-proof bowl and let the cooking process stop. There's all sorts of different shades that you can go to with brown butter, but we want this golden brown color for our cornbread. So we're going to let this cool, and then we'll sift that out. For our cornbread, we have our cornmeal, flour, sugar, salt, baking soda, and baking powder. Those are our dry ingredients. We have our brown butter, which is cooling, our buttermilk, eggs, oil, and honey. As I mentioned in a footnote for the recipe, if your cornmeal is really coarse, you're going to want to let it mix it in with the buttermilk and then let it set for a little bit. This will help it soften and keep you from having gritty cornbread. Now our brown butter is still a little bit warm, and while it's warm we want to filter out those burnt bits. You don't always have to do that, but they can cause a little bitterness. So we're going to just, for this recipe, use a simple little mesh sieve here. You can use a coffee filter or cheesecloth if you really want to get all those bits out for a more refined flavor. But for this recipe, a little bit's not going to hurt us. Now we're going to mix together our dry ingredients. So we'll just combine all of those in a bowl, and we're going to mix those together. This helps make sure that our flavoring, like the salt and the sugar, is evenly dispersed, as well as our leavening, which is the baking soda and baking powder, is mixed throughout that flour. Next, we're going to combine our wet ingredients. We'll start with the eggs, and we're going to mix those up so the egg yolk and the egg white are well blended together. This will disperse it more evenly in your recipe. Then we're going to add the oil, and we're going to add our honey next. Now, if your honey was like my honey in the cupboard, it was beginning to crystallize. Now, you can solve that problem by sticking that jar in some hot water, or even microwaving it a little bit to soften up and melt those crystals, which is what I had to do. Okay, so now we're going to give this just a quick little stir to kind of incorporate that honey. Then we're going to grab our cornmeal and buttermilk mixture. Remember that we put that cornmeal in the buttermilk so that it would get a head start and soften up a little bit. Otherwise, with coarse-grained cornmeal at the end, if you haven't done that, you're going to end up with some grittiness in your cornbread, and no one wants that. So now we'll add in our brown butter, and we're going to blend all of these wet ingredients until they are fully combined. We mix the dry ingredients separate from the wet ingredients so that when we combine them, we don't have to over-mix the batter. If you stir and over-mix the batter, it ends up creating a toughness in your end product. So anytime you do sort of a quick bread like this, cornbread, zucchini bread, banana bread, don't over-mix the batter. Just get everything completely combined and stop. And then you'll have a much more tender end product. We're going to prepare our cast iron skillet with some shortening. We're going to wipe in a layer of that, then pop the cast iron skillet into a 400-degree oven till it gets hot and that oil kind of melts. You can see we've let the batter sit here while that was heating up, and the buttermilk and baking soda have started to react to get some aeration in that batter. That's a good thing. We like that. So we're going to put it all in our cast iron skillet. Now you can use a muffin tin. We make mini muffins at the Oak Cafe. You can also use a cake pan for this. I like to use the cast iron skillet because the oil and the heat from the cast iron gives you a nice crispy crust. Got a little bit of batter on the side there. Whenever you do something like that, make sure you wipe that off. It will cook faster and burn before the rest of your cornbread is done. So here we have, after about 22 minutes in the oven, a nice golden brown pan of cornbread. It's kind of firm in the center, but still spongy. We're gonna let that cool. And we're rushing the process a little bit here today, but we're gonna cut into it anyway. As I said in the recipe, this makes 8 to 10 servings. You could actually get about 12 if you did small pieces. But if your family is like mine, you're only gonna get 8 pieces out of this pan. And here we have a light, crispy crust from the cast iron skillet and a fluffy and tasty piece of cornbread. It's that honey and the buttermilk and the brown butter that gives our cornbread its unique flavor. So that is the Oak Cafe Brown Butter Honey Cornbread. We hope that you try this recipe at home. We're sure that you will enjoy it. Again, this is Neil Treganza from the Oak Cafe. I certainly hope that you and those you know are staying safe and that you all just keep baking. Take care.